Hi Stitchy friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Joanne and I am the Eclectic Stitcher. Thank you for stopping by and checking me out. This is a FlossTube extra video where I show you my stitchy area and my stitchy stuff, how I organize things and just kind of how I plan things out and what I use to plan my stitching. Unfortunately, I don't record with my phone because I don't have a gimbal to make it sturdy. So I'm using my laptop and hopefully I can navigate through and hopefully you won't get dizzy when I turn you to show you my little area. But once I show you my area, then we'll just be stationary and we'll be fine. But I'll do my best to keep it steady as much as I can. So let's get started. As you can see behind me, you see some shelves. This is my stitchy area. This is part of my room, and I'll just move over here. As you can see, I have two shelves here, and this is all stitchy stuff. These bins that you see here, these are my whips, and I will show you one close up and how I organize them in here. But they're all in alphabetical order. And so I kind of split them up into the 6 bins. What you see here in these boxes, these are all my floss, DMC floss. And this one here has some Sullivan's, Cosmo, and Anchor. Here on this side is just some drawers where I have some just additional things. These are my stitchy books where I keep my cheat sheets that I'll talk about. And just some extra boxes where I keep little things organized. I have a collection of pillows up there that are finished. I'm thinking about probably getting a dobo. I think that's what they're called, to put them in. I haven't figured out yet how to put them together so that I can either hang them up or put them in a dobo. I personally don't have a lot of pillows. I think there's about 6 pillows up there. I've shown them before, but right now I just got them laying there just for now because I don't have any other space. Now this area is just behind my stitchy table. So when I record a regular floss tube, and I'm going to try to do this without making you dizzy, usually what you see is this area. So it's right behind me. There's my stitchy table and things. And so my stitchy room is all together. On the other side of this here is my bedroom. So nothing big, nothing fancy, but I love it. I love it. I just have one long room. Actually, this is going to sound crazy. This is my living room, but my living room is my bedroom. And it's funny, I was talking to a friend last night and I said, I've never really had a living room. Even when the kids were little, we had a living room, but I didn't really have couches or anything like that because we had no use for it. So the kids usually used it for their own game room. So when I moved into this little apartment, my bed, being a king-size bed, did not fit in one of the rooms, so I took over the living room. And I love it. I love the space. Half of it is my living room. Half of it is my stitchy stuff. Makes me happy. It's all good. Like I said, nothing fancy. So let me show you what I have. We'll get started. I am going to get this little guy out of here, but this is my stitchy stand. I do want to show you this before I move him out. This is a stand that I purchased at Michael's a couple years ago. This works for me. I do take it with me. It does have knobs. You can close it and store it easier, but it's just a basic stand. And this is what I use to stitch. I don't stitch in hand. I will stitch. Normally, I will stitch in my stand. Makes things easier for me, and I can do two-handed stitching. I wanted to real quick show you my chart stand. So I have one of these, and I can't take it out because my light is attached to the wall. But I use one of these stands. This is usually normally used in an office setting where you will put a piece of paper there I didn't bring a piece. You put a piece of paper there, and you can clip it and hold it. So I keep my stitchy stand there. I do take my stand with me when I go on retreats. I don't normally take my lamp because I don't really need it if there's good lighting. And then I have my tablet where I can sit it here or here. This is a tablet stand, but I mainly keep it here because while I'm stitching, I am usually watching FlossTube. All right, so let me show you some of my things that I use. I'm going to show you what I have on the table, and then I'll bring some of my boxes over to show you that. One of the things that people usually, a lot of stitchers talk about is how they keep track of their stitching and if they use a planner. Now, in 2023, I bought this planner. This is actually a 23 to 25 stitchy planner. And this is just a monthly planner. So when I started documenting, what I would do is I would just write what I was stitching on. So I will make note of that. If I was very involved in Zoom, and so any Zooms I would document it up here, what times they were going on, and I just kept notes of, if I participated in any challenges. So just kind of documented what I stitched on. If I was going to go to a retreat, I would write that down here, and then I would list what I worked on during the retreat. I don't put stickers. I know stickers is the big thing. I did put stickers here. This was Acorns and Threads retreat. This is my first retreat, and I actually participated in their online or virtual retreat. So I did put those stickers there, but normally my planner just looks like this. Sometimes I get fancy and I would write notes and type them up. Those are all my the Zoom groups that I was in, and so I would list there what dates they were gone. So I just kind of use a planner to keep track of what I'm stitching on. And really the only thing that I write on here is the name of the chart. I don't write the any specifics, and I'll show you in a little bit when I show you a WIP what I use to keep track of what I'm stitching as far as details. So I don't put details on my planners. I put them in another sheet. So that was 2023. In 2024, I decided I didn't want to use that anymore. And I got a little fancier, and I got this. And I think I bought this at Target. This is called a Life Planner. This was a really big planner, very expensive planner. But again, I did the same thing. I own the monthly things. Now on the monthly, because this is a monthly and daily, on the monthly part of it, I will write down when Zooms were hosted. So if I know that there's a Zoom every first Saturday of the month, I will write what group that is. I also keep track of when I recorded FlossTubes because it helps me know what charts I stitched on from the last time that I recorded, and I'll just go through my book. Now this particular planner had a section, like a notes section, and I will keep track of challenges. So I would participate in a group where they did a lot of designer challenges, or they had themes. I did participate in WIPGO at the beginning of the year, and so I kept track of that here. So I would do challenges there. There was a section here where you can do other things, but I really didn't use it. Now what I did like was that the daily was organized like this, and you had 3 spaces to put in information. So if one day I stitch on 3 WIPs, then I have room to put that on there. And then I got a little bit more into the journaling, where I will list what I stitched on, but sometimes I will put things like I didn't stitch today and why I didn't stitch that day. So it's turned more into a more of a journal thing, but it's all stitching related. unless I don't stitch because maybe I went out that weekend. Sometimes I go out to the parks with the family, whether it's Disney, Busch Gardens, wherever. And so I will write that down there. So that's pretty much what this book did for me. I did start using some stickers on this one because this book came with stickers, and I thought, well, why not? I'll go ahead and use it. But I didn't do a whole lot of stitching, but sometimes like this came from, I went to a retreat that day. This was my name tag, so I posted it on there. So, so I just put whatever on there. So that was my 2024 book. And then last year, I downgraded to a basic planner, which is just this, or not 2020, 25, last year, 2025. And this I just got on Amazon. Again, on my monthly pages, I just wrote down basic things, kind of kept track of any events that were going on, any stitching groups. I am part of some groups that stitch a couple times out of the month. And then I have the dailies where I write down. So I had more space here to write down what I stitched on. And sometimes I just stitch on one whip and that's it. But I do keep track of all that. And I do keep track when I do, and see, sometimes I'll have more journaling. I know Christmas week I was sick, so I didn't have anything on there, so I just wrote in that week I was sick. But so yeah, so I do journaling in my planners. So that was last year, and this year I kept it simple again. I just got a prettier planner. I got this on Amazon as well. And it's the same idea as the other one, where you have the monthly and then the dailies. I don't have a whole lot here because we're just on week 1. But I do write down on the monthly calendar when I did FlossTube, and I do it here too because then I'll go from here on to show you what I've worked on. So far, I've only worked on my blessing sampler, which, by the way, I did not mention that in my last FlossTube. I am working on a blessing sampler, and I'll show that on my next FlossTube. And then today, I will be working on my diamond painting, which is the call for Whip Go this month. Actually, diamond painting came up twice this month. So I'll be stitching on that for 10 hours this month. So that's my planner. I do use the back. There's notes in the back that I use. I know when I knew I was going to go on a break, I wrote down notes on things that I wanted to do on the breaks, and then I'll keep notes of, what I wanted to show or things like that. So I do use that as well if I need it. Okay, so let's talk about some stitchy stuff. Most of you have seen me in Zoom groups, or if you see me on virtual events, I do stitch with this magnifier glass. I actually have, you think I'm crazy, I have 3 of these. And the reason I have 3 is because I use 2 at home, and I try to keep them charged. These are rechargeable. And so while I'm using one is charging. When this one goes out, then I change them around. So especially when I'm doing virtual events and you're stitching for 12, 30 hours the whole weekend, I knew that I needed an extra one. So the last year or two I've been using 2 here at home, and then I have a third one that I take on the road. And I'll show you my to-go bag and how I keep my glasses. Now, when I do go on retreats or I take my glasses, I have these boxes. I have 3 of these boxes that I just bought on Amazon just to keep them protected. I put them in here, and I know that they won't get broken. And they fit perfectly. I don't know how I was able to match this perfectly, but I do take my 2 that I use at home. I do take them to retreats for the same reason, just to make sure that I have one if it runs out of charge. Never want to run out of charge. This magnifier does have lights. There's two settings for lights, bright and brightest, so it's perfect. I like using this. A lot of times people don't like to use this because they feel like it's too heavy. I do put them over my glasses to use them, and it's out of the way, and I don't have any extra things hanging around. As far as hoops, I use Q-snaps. And these are the only two size Q-snaps I have. I know a lot of stitchers will have a collection of Q-snaps. I don't feel like I need more than this because I don't, when I put my whips away after I'm done stitching for the day or for the week, they come off the Q-snap. So yes, I do have to change it. I mean, I do have to take it out and put it in and all that. That can be a little tedious sometimes, especially now, like at the beginning of the year, like now with the planning of doing either whip go or some of the challenges. If I'm using different whips, this can get a little tedious. So I am going to purchase another one of this size just because I am going to have a project that I'm going to keep on a hoop because it's going to be my daily stitch. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my next FlossTube if I do start that challenge that I recently learned about. So I may buy one more of these, but other than that, I have this. I do have a medium-sized nurse hoop and a couple little ones that I use for my travel pieces. So that is that. Now, one of the things that you've heard a lot about the stitching boxes, but I don't know, a couple years ago, someone, came out with, hey, let's use these stitchy boxes. You make them all nice and neat and all that. That's perfect. That's fine. A lot of people like using those. Me personally, I don't need a lot of stuff. I keep mine very simple. And so when I first started stitching, I needed to look for something to keep my things in. And so when I traveled and whatnot, I needed something that I can just stick in somewhere and take it with me. So I was at Goodwill one day and I found this. This is a tablet case, a simple tablet case, nothing to it. But I opened this up and I thought, I can use this for my stitchy box. And so what do I keep in there? So in this box, in this little box, I have needles, different size needles. I have little scissors. I have my tweezers, my scissors. That's another thing. I don't have a collection of scissors. This is it. When this scissor runs out or gets dull, I throw it out and I go buy one. This is just a $5 scissor that I bought at Walmart. And then I usually have a needle minder there because I can stick my needle in there. I do have this piece. Now, you're wondering how this is all sticking there. When I was doing diamond painting, I discovered these pads, these sticky pads for diamond painting. And so when I started doing stitching, I thought, oh, I can use this to put my things together. So that's why this holds together, because it's on the pad. Oh, and I do have one of these brushes. These are the best thing. It's got some fuzz on it because I used it last night. But when I have to frog a project, I use my handy little eyelash brush. I use that to take out all the fuzzies out of the fabric. This has been the best thing for me to use. Like I said, I don't buy expensive things. I feel like I'm very frugal and I just use things any way I can. So, and then I have this, and now these are little finger pads that I have. I use those if I need to when I need to push the needle through. I put it on my finger and that helps me push the needle through to catch the thread in the back to finish it. And then I have this on this side because what I do is when I go to stitch, I will normally bring this over to this side, and then that way I have access to my stuff, and then I'll put the thread here as I'm working on there. So it's just a way I work. I don't know. I'm just weird sometimes when it comes to that. But these pads are great. I bought these at not Walmart, Amazon. And these are great because you can take them off and you can wash them. Usually I wash them like this one here needs to be washed. There's a lot of thread on there, little fussy threads. But I take them off about once every couple weeks. I take them off and I wash them with soap and water. I let them dry, air dry. They dry in less than an hour, and then I put it all back together, and the stickiness does get back to what it was. And then I have just this little handy little thing. I need to find a new one. This one's getting all tore up. And so if I'm going to take it with me to travel, I stick it in here. It fits perfectly, and voila. There goes my stitchy stuff. So that's it. And then it goes in my bag. One thing that I do take with me, and this actually, I keep it here. I actually have this hanging here. And this is where I keep my needles. And this I bought at my crafty store, at my L&S. Somebody made this. But I think this is the cutest little thing. It's got like a little bean bag bed there. I keep a couple needles in here. I keep one there with a piece of thread because that's what I use sometimes when I have to thread thread the thread underneath. If my needle can't go through, I stick this in. It's got a loop and I can drag it through. And then of course I put on my little orts there. When this gets too full, I put it in my little ort jar. Now, what am I going to do with this ort jar when it's full, but I can still put more, but I can squish it down and put more, but why am I collecting this? I don't know. I don't really do any other crafts. I don't believe in throwing these outside for the birds. It's not good for them. I don't put up a tree, so I don't have ornaments where I can create. So I don't know. It's just something that I started doing about a year or two ago. So if you have any ideas on what to do with this, fine. If not, hey, I'm just going to trash it. But I don't know. I just like it. I just like it sitting there looking all colorful, I guess. So this I do take with me to the retreats. I just kind of stick that in there and put it in my bag. I have lost needles in here. There's a couple needles in the bean bag. I haven't figured out how to get them out, so there they stay. So there's that. Now, if you wanted to know what kind of needles I use, I don't use anything fancy right now. I started using the pony needles. They're okay. I like 28 count or 28 size needles. The smaller the better, but I do use 26 as well. So if I am stitching on Ada, the 26 works better for me than the 28. But it really just depends on the size of fabric that I'm using. But I have used pony needles. I usually just use DMC needles. I don't need anything fancy. I've tried John James and other needles, but I just kind of stick with what I like, and I haven't really found anything that's been like, voila. So just keep it simple. I use a needle until it either bends or too much, or I don't know. I don't really change them. These pony needles are supposed to be like sturdy or whatnot. You can't see that, but this one's a little bent. I still use it. It's just the top here is a little crooked to the side. I use it until I get tired of using it. And I use the same needle for all the projects. I do not put needles on my fabric. I don't leave needles in my fabric. They come out, they go on here, or they go in the box. And that's how I do the needles. When I'm on the road, which is my travel piece, like I take a piece to work that I keep at the office. I have my little ort jar or catcher. So that way I can just throw them in there, close it up. This closes flat, and I put it there. Now, when I do travel, let me get my bag. So this is my on-the-go bag. It's just a tote bag. Probably got it at Goodwill somewhere. And in here, this is diamond painting. So I do have a couple small diamond paintings that I work on. So this is my diamond painting kit on the go. The one that you saw on my video, my last video, stays here. I don't take that with me. And then there's my glasses, and then I have a smaller tablet case that I use for my on-the-go bag. Kind of the same setup. I don't have something on this side, but I do have a different pair of tweezers. I have little scissors here. These are little scissors that I bought at my LNS. Nothing fancy, but I do keep it in the bag. And I also have one of those other little scissors, my eyelash brush, and then I have this little case here. Which way does it open? Where I keep some needles in there. So I've got a magnet in there, and then I throw my needles in there, and then I just have this little needle minder there, and then I have a couple of those. So pretty much the same setup as my bigger one, but this is a smaller version. And then I just keep this. My mom makes my project bags, which I will show you that in a little bit. But this is a small project bag she made me, and it's the perfect fit for this one. And then I would sometimes stick my little orc catcher in here, and that's it. So it goes in my bag. Now, my travel pieces are normally small pieces, and I normally don't show these on my FlossTube video because I don't work on it very much, and I usually will show them when I'm done with them. But my small pieces that I stitch on the go, I keep them in these little photo boxes. They're numbered because I think I have about 15 different projects in these little boxes. And so I just randomly pick a number and I work on it until it's done. Here I'm working on this little one here, and that's where I am with that. Because it's a smaller piece, I usually don't, obviously I don't have this on a hoop or anything. I can work on this in my hand because it's small enough for me to work on it. So I keep my chart in there, and then I have my floss, and I'll talk about my floss cards here in a bit as well. So that's my traveling cases and where I keep all my things for easy grab and on the go. Normally, I will take this to work and it stays under my desk. So after I eat lunch, I usually have about 30-35 minutes after I eat. And so I'll either stitch or I'll do a little bit of diamond painting. Okay, so let's talk about whips. Like I said, here are all my whips. And I'm going to show you how I have them in here. They're all in alphabetical order. And this is what they look like in here. Okay. Now let me just pull one out here. So this one here, I used to have my bigger projects in a different setting, but I've recently just merged them all together. But normally what I do, I use these file folders that are like the ones that you can open wide, and you get these at Walmart. So I use those. I use the labels, just basic multi-use labels that I write down. Normally I will write the name of the whip. I don't put the full name. I will shorten names if I need to. So I don't do like the forest of the trees. I may just put forest of the trees. I kind of keep it simplified. And so I have most of my project bags are project bags that my mom made for me. Normally what I would do is I would go to Walmart, get a bunch of, different flavor designs, and she would normally put in a matching color plain fabric on the inside, and then the outside will be the whatever design. And this is just a simple envelope. I don't even have anything to close it. As long as it keeps my things in there, I'm good with that. Again, I don't need anything fancy. I just need something to put my projects in and keep them clean and keep them safe. Okay. Now inside the envelope, I'm going to talk about my stitchy things. So when I started cross stitching back in 2021 and I started seeing FlossTube, one of the things that I noticed is that floss tubers, stitchers will sometimes forget either the name of the charts, or they forget what fabric they're using or floss or why they stitch it. So when I started watching FlossTube back in 2021, when I started cross stitching, I said to myself, I need to come up with a way to keep track of my cross stitch and what they are and why I stitch them. So I created this sheet in a Word document. I just call it my stitchy project. I put some, little stitchy stuff there. And then what I do is I'll find a picture of the chart, and this one, first I started gluing them, and then I thought I don't need to do that. I can just go online and I can just copy and paste it on there. And then I keep track of different things, and I'll hold that up there if you want to see. I'll have the title, who the designer is, the stitch count, where I purchased it from. I will have the date started and date finished. This one I'm still working on. I don't have the start date on here, but I'm sure usually sometimes the chart will have the start date, the fabric name, count, color, and then what type of floss I use. And then I have this note section. And in the note section, I usually will write why I'm stitching on this. In this particular one, back in 2024 for my birthday month, which is in July, I decided that I wanted to stitch patriotic charts. So this is one that I selected. And so that's what I'll put on there. Now, I will use this chart for stitch alongs or start alongs or stitch along. I will use it for challenges. So this is originally, the notes that I put on here is my original as to why. But if I do use it for a challenge, there's other sheets that I use for that. And let me get those to show you. Okay, so one of the things that I started in 2023 was I wanted to keep track of how many days it took me to finish a project. Sometimes I would count stitches and things like that, but I didn't really keep track with that. So I don't do that anymore. But in 2023, I'm sure I saw this from another floss tuber, and I kind of just created my version of it. But I have this daily tracker sheet. And so I would normally put the name of the chart and the date that I started. And then this one was for 2024. And then when I stitch on it, then I'll just take a marker and I put a dot on there to show how many days. And so at the end of when I'm done with it, I will attach that to the planning sheet. And I'll show you that in a second. Now, starting in 2026, I created a different version. This is okay, but every year I had to create one, and so I would have 2 or 3 of these for each chart or each whip. So then I thought, I got a little bit smarter, and I created this one for 2026, but not only for 26, 27, 28, 29. So what's on there? I've got the chart name, designer, start date, finish. Then I have the months listed here, and then 1 through 31 through the end there. Of course, if the month doesn't have 30 or 31 or 29, then I block those out. So when I stitch on a project, I'm going to kind of do the same thing like I did here. I'm going to take a marker and I'm just going to color that in. And so this is how I'm going to start tracking my daily stitching. And so when I'm done with the project, then I'll just attach this to the stitch sheet. So let me show you. So I've got this binder where I have, once I'm done with the project, I would store them in here. I will hole punch them and I will store them in here in alphabetical order. And like I said, and then I would staple that piece to it. I normally have a printout of the pictures, which is what I show on my FlossTube channels when I'm showing you my whips. If it's something that if it's an online thing, then I would usually print it off in a sheet. All that gets attached to it. And I think that's all I attached to those. So I keep them in here. So if I ever wanted to go back and somebody asked me, hey, what, that finish, tell me about that finish. And then I can go to my book and do that. Now let me talk about challenge sheets. So as I had mentioned in my FlossTube, I participate in a couple different challenges. I am not very, before I do that, let me show you my start along tracker. Like I said, sometimes I will use a whip for stitch along or start along. I created just this basic sheet where I'll put the name of the chart and the designer. And so if I'm stitching something with, let's say, Jen from Jen's Fiber Web, the who is the floss tuber? Which person am I stitching this with? I will put the start date, the why are we stitching this? Why is she doing this stitch along? And then if there's a hashtag, I will keep track of the hashtag. So I have so if I wanted to use one project for 6 different start alongs, this is where I will track it. And again, this will be placed with the sheets. So yes, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of tracking, but it's what I like to do. I've always been an office person, and spreadsheets are my favorite. And so I will create spreadsheets for whatever to keep track of. Which, by the way, I do have all my whips and all my charts listed in a spreadsheet. I have a tab for all my whips, a tab for all my charts that I haven't started. And then what I do is if I start one, I move it from one tab to the other. When I finish it, I move it to another tab. So I do keep a spreadsheet, excuse me, with that information. Now back to challenge sheets. So I'm sure I've shown these on my YouTube, on my FlossTube videos, but I'll create a sheet, like for example, I Spy. I'll create a sheet with all the prompts that for I Spy, this is run by Laura, who's Stitching by the Shore. And so as you can see, for December, I didn't have a lot of whips, 3. So again, I don't plan for the prompts. When I'm stitching on something, before I put it away, I'll look to see if I can fit it into one of the prompts, and there it goes on my sheet. And then I had one for Magazine Monthly Challenge, and as you can see, I only have one project on there. Why? Because whatever I stitched on in the month of December didn't match any of the prompts on here. I couldn't find a way to match them. So once the month is over, if I do have whips that I use, I will post the before and after picture and how I used it on the Facebook groups, just to show that I did something with it. And then I will punch hole it. And then I have a smaller binder where I keep my stitching challenge sheets. And this goes back to when I first started. Keeping track of a lot of stuff. I did participate in the Year of Whips 2024. And I didn't really make it. But you know what? I have it there. And I know what I worked on. So I participated in the Stitch Olympics in 2024, which, by the way, if you don't know about this is hosted by the Naptime Stitcher. She has the guide available for 2026. So then I keep all my sheets on here. If I participated in a cross stitch for other challenges, other groups, and I have it on there, and I keep that there. I tried Whip Go 2024, and as you can see, I did 1 month, and I never went back to it. So yeah, so I do keep track of that. Will I ever use it again? I don't know. Will I ever need this information? I don't know. But it's my journaling. It's my way I journal things, and I like it. Again, it's a lot of paper, a lot of keeping up with, but I like it. I don't know. So it's just something that I keep track of. Maybe it's too much for you to keep track of. For me, sometimes I feel like it's not enough, but I make do. Now, let me talk about floss cards, and then I'll show you how I store my fabric, and I'll show you my floss. And then I really want to keep this under an hour, but so I've got this little jar. I had a friend that purchased a watch that came in this little jar. And of course, you know, I keep things for whatever reason because I know I'm going to use it. And then inside of here are my floss cards. So what are these? These are index cards that I bought at Walmart. These come in a ring. They already come hole punch with a little one, and then it comes with a ring. And I think there's probably, I don't know, like 100 cards per thing. So I take the ring off and I put them here and I keep them here. Now, when I'm going to kit up a project, this is what I use. And then, of course, I have 2 hole punchers that I use. I have one, oops, excuse me, sorry about that. I have one that is a circle and one that is a heart. I just bought these at Michael's, nothing fancy. Usually I use the circle one, but sometimes I'll use the heart one. I want to say it's like 100 because look, I have a bunch here that I keep in a plastic bag. So once this gets empty, then I add on to that. So let me show you here. I don't do anything, again, I'm not fancy. Give me one second. Okay, this is one example. Now, I normally, so I will hole punch, usually 2. Sometimes I'll put 3 and just kind of have them hanging. Now, I normally do not put a full skein on here. Normally, I will go through a chart and I will see, okay, how many do I think I need? And so I'll just probably just pull a couple out of each floss, and then it goes back in the box. Now, this project I'm doing, I'm stitching them with Sullivan's. So because I don't do a lot of Sullivan stitching, when I buy floss for just a specific project to use Sullivan's, I will put them together here. And then I do reference a DMC number, and then I draw my symbols. Now, nowadays, I'll either draw my symbols, or sometimes I will take the guide, the symbol guide. I would make a copy, but I'll blow it up, and then I'll stick it on here. So just whatever I feel like doing. Sometimes some of the symbols, I'm not an artist. Some of the symbols may not, these were simple symbols, but some of the harder symbols, I'll just glue them on there. And so that's the way I use my floss cards. I find these to be easy to use just because, one, they're inexpensive. You get a whole lot of them. And actually, I didn't buy all those at Walmart. I bought these last ones at Amazon. I think there was 200. I think there was 200 in a box, or maybe 100, and it was like $6. So they're inexpensive, so you can find them on Amazon. And if you have any questions on any of the things that I have, let me know. I'm not going to put in the show notes everything that I'm showing because, I don't know, it just takes too much time. But if you wanted a link of where I find these, I can send that to you. If you want me to share any of my sheets with you, I am more than happy to share my spreadsheets, my Word documents, whatever. I am here to share ideas, and I want to share the wealth. So I am not going to keep all these things to myself. If it's something that you're interested in doing and you want to try it, send me an email, joannetheeclecticstitcher@gmail.com, and I will be more than happy to send you whatever you like for me to send you. Um, just no project bags. My mom makes project bags, but she doesn't sell them. She just makes them for me. She does sew them, so when I need project bags, I'll go buy like 10 fat quarter pieces, and then usually in a day she's sewed me some 10 project bags. But those I don't. She doesn't sell them, so kind of keep those to myself. But anyways, so yes, please let me know if there's anything that you would like for me to share with you. Just reach out. I don't have a problem sharing any of that with you. I don't have a problem with chatting with you if you wanted more details, more information. Maybe I'm talking too fast and you wanted to go back and, hey, can you clarify this for me? Let me know. That's what we're here for, to help each other out. Okay, let me show you how I store my printed charts or any chart that is not PDF. Again, I have it in a jar, not a jar, bucket. And then I have those in a folder, in a filing folder with the name of the chart and the designer. And I have those there, so I keep a box of file folders for that. And so that's where I keep them. Now, as far as my fabric, I have a basket for that. And I actually, let me show you this. So this is something I use when I go on retreats. This I bought at my L&S, and it's a table mat. Simple table mat, just rolls up. And so when I go to a retreat and I find my spot, I will lay this down on the table to kind of block my space. Kind of keeps people off your space. If they see this, they know to stay off of my space. So this is a good thing to use. If you don't have one, I recommend you finding someone that does it, that, puts these together. You can buy them online. And then I went to a retreat recently where one of my table mates gave us these little stands with our names. So I keep this in here in this pocket, and so I can put my name on there. I don't know, just to, when people walk by, they're like, oh, that's Joanne's table. When I go to retreats, I don't stay at my table very long. I'm a social butterfly. I like to walk around and see what other people are doing, what other stitches are doing, and so I can at least leave my name there. I mean, most people know who I am. I take my stand. But anyway, so I have that there. And then I have a little basket here where I have more project bags that my mom made that I haven't used, or just other bags that I bought. And then how I store my fabric. I store my fabric in these little envelopes, and I have to thank Carolyn from Seasook Stitch, because she showed these in one of her FlossTube videos a few months ago, and I thought, oh, this is perfect. Before, I used to put them in a box, but I wanted to keep them clean, and so I bought this at on Amazon, and I don't remember how much it cost, but I can get that information if you're interested. But then I'll put a fabric there, and then on here I will write down what the fabric is and the size of the fabric. So I will measure the fabric so that when I'm looking for a fabric, then I can just flip through my selection, which, as you can see, I don't have a lot of fabric. I do not stash fabric. I normally buy fabrics when I am ready to start a project, but I do have a little bit of a collection here from just pieces that I have, or sometimes I will buy a piece of fabric just because it's pretty, but normally I don't keep a lot of fabric. So yes, I'm not like your original stitchers or a lot of stitchers that like to keep that, but that's what I do. I put what it is and I store it away. So that is that. Oh, as far as the floss, so when I would cut my floss, when I get a new skein, I will cut my floss, and let me get that box real quick. Okay. I don't know, my video just stopped there for a minute. So I was saying is, I have found this idea from somebody that posted in a Facebook group a couple years ago on floss cards that they make. And so when I saw them, I thought, I can make these myself. And basically what it is, what I did is I took a piece of cardstock paper and I cut it in half, and then I folded it into three pieces, three sections. And then I would punch holes, and then I would create this little hole here, and then I would write down the number of the floss. So when I get a new floss and I'm going to store it, this is where my floss is. And what I do is, like, I'll put even numbers on this side, odd numbers on that side, so that they lay fairly good, or, straight. And so if I want to stitch on a project and I don't have the called for, I can always look for a floss that may match that color. So if I'm looking for a yellow, then I can look at these yellows, and so they're right there, and I can just pick from there. Okay. And so what I do is, now what I will do is, before I put it in here, I will cut my floss to the size that I like. And I think I did this one here, yes. So this is the size that I use. I don't really know what size that is. I'll have to look that up. But when I first started cutting floss, I would just take the floss and I will measure it on my table right here. And I will make it this long, this piece of the pool noodle, because it works great for me. It's this size. And then I started seeing stitchers showing these little boards that are made. I don't know where they get the boards or whatnot, where you can wind it and cut it and you go. And I thought, I can probably make my own board out of cardstock or something. Again, why am I going to spend money if I can find a way to do it myself? Not to take anybody's business away, but I'm going to make it myself if I can. Here's my handy dandy board. So I just took cardstock, orange cardstock, and I folded it up into three. I cut it and I folded it into three sections just to make it thick. I cut the outside here, and then I just laminated this with packing tape. And I cut a little slit here on the top, if you can see. It's got a little slit. So what I do is I'll put the beginning piece of the floss there. I wind it, and then I cut it from the top here. I stick my scissors in there, cut it, and this is what I get. Is this the size of my arm? Almost. So let me see how big this is. Okay, 30 inches, almost 30 inches. It's probably a lot longer than I need it to be, but that's, when you fold it to do a loop start, to me that's perfect size. So yes, you can make your own board if that's what you like, or stitchers find other ways to cut it. I just find this to be the way that I cut it, so I keep that here, and I just have fun with this little plastic thing. What else? I'm looking around. Let me look at my notes. I'll be right back. I think that is all that I have. I don't see anything else. I've showed you everything I have. Oh, I do get asked when I have my fabric on the Q-snap, and you have all that extra fabric. I don't use grime guards. I had bought at one time steering wheel covers. That works just as well as grime guards, but I didn't like it. So I use painter's tape. And this does not mess up your fabric. It doesn't interfere with anything on your whip. I just kind of fold my fabric up. I was trying to see if I had one that was on a hoop, but I don't have any. Well, no, I don't. They're all sitting here. Anyway, so I fold my fabric and then I'll use this piece of tape. So sometimes you don't normally see it on my floss tube because, like I said, I don't keep my fabric on the on the Q-snap. But if you ever see me on a Zoom group, and I show you my whip, you're going to see the blue tape. And that's what it is. It's just the painter's tape. It works well for me. I do keep a big roll with me, and I use it for whatever I need to kind of hold down. Sometimes when I'm stitching in the car, not while I'm driving, but if I am sitting in the car and waiting for either an appointment or waiting on my daughter, then I will stitch. Sometimes I use a piece of this to stick my chart on the steering wheel, and so then I have it there readily available for me to use. And that's all that I have. I don't have anything else to show you. I think those are all my secrets, all my quirky stuff, my OCD. Yeah. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you were enabled to try something new. Hopefully you enjoyed what you've seen and maybe you want more information. Like I said, I am open to share any information with you, any sheets. I am an open book. Just ask and you shall receive. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me on Instagram, Joanne the Eclectic Stitcher, or you can email me or just put in a comment below. I will respond. I respond to all my comments. Okay. Thank you for watching, friends. I hope that your new year is off to a good start. This is the 3rd of January, so we're only 3 days in, and so far everything's good. So I just hope that things will continue to go well. And that's it. Have a nice day. Thank you for watching. Bye.